I'm Jeffrey Villaduen in a pike and shot battle from the For King or Country mod. This was one of the very early mods for Medieval 2. It was started before Kingdoms, so it's based on vanilla. And it is about English Civil War. So we have royalists and parliamentarians. I'm commanding the army of the parliament here. They have red flags, and I've selected units that are dressed up in red. They have red uniforms. Not all units have red uniforms, some have blue. And the royalists have blue in this battle, but some units in reality had also red. So it was very confusing. This was, as I said, a very early mod, and it was a project led by Alpha Delta, who also led the project of Broken Crescent. These were the two, probably the earliest two mods released, the main sort of total conversion mods released for Medieval 2. And they're wonderful mods in many ways. This is a very specialized mod. It's just got two factions. It's fought in England. So it's a very sort of special interest mod. So one thing you'll see here is that the units are arranged in battalia. They have one unit of pikemen flanked by musketeers on either sides. This is the Dutch style. The same with the royalists, but they've started moving forward. They are here in blue. And like in the other mods, the musketeers are moving forward, so the firearm units are moving forward. However, there's a difference with stainless steel and vanilla in that, for example, in stainless steel, musketeers have a range of about 130 to 145. Musketeers here have a range of about 160 to 170 meters, so a longer range. And it's also much longer than arquebusiers. So what we saw earlier was arquebusiers and handgunners. These in stainless steel have a range less than 110 meters. So the change here is significant in terms of range. And we'll see what kind of difference this makes, if it makes a difference. So we see also here some cavalry. The cavalry, some of the cavalry is armed with carbines, which were similar to blunderbusses, and they could be fired. They didn't require much, so they could be fired with a flintlock mechanism. So they could be fired by cavalry. Only the best units, like the bodyguards of various generals, had flintlock carbines. So you see here again the arrangement. So we have pikemen in the center, flanked by musketeers in this Dutch style formation. Musketeers are between 8 and 10 ranks deep. That was what they were supposed to be. And sometimes there are some halberdiers in the rear.
Our men are under attack. We must act now.
So the musketeers have opened fire from about 170 meters away. So you see now that the enemy, the royalists, are quite some distance away. And significantly, the royalists have also opened fire. You saw in the previous battle, in the last two battles, the vanilla ones, no single enemy soldier fired a shot. They were just skirmishing back and forth. At least here, the royalists are already firing back.
Our men are under attack. We need to act.
And some royalist dragoons moving forward.
Our men are under attack. We must act now.
So you see now they've set up about 150 meters away, so 100 meters away, and they're firing from that distance. And the musketeers are a little bit more spread out at the moment, at least. The guys at the nearest guys from the enemy are dragoons. And so this is a wonderful animation, so they are spreading out a little bit. They're ready to fire. These cartridges that are hanging from their belts have measured quantities of gunpowder. They were called the 12 apostles. They had 12 of these, and they already measured how much gunpowder they need for a shot. The artillery has opened fire. Artillery in this mod has a range of about 300-350 meters, which is historically accurate. But musketeers could fire further than 170 meters. So these people were hit by a mortar shot. Cannon shot in this period mostly were not explosive, at least in England. They do not have explosive shots, so they fired round shot. That basically means a solid shot of either lead or stone. And if you fire with a mortar, it will go high up in the air and fall on the ground and then possibly kill nobody or kill one person, might land on him. But if you fire in a straight line, which was the usual thing for artillery, for cannon, then anyone in the way would get hit. However, then you could only fire up to about 300-350 meters. That was called a point-blank range, because after that the shot will hit the ground if you fire straight ahead. But you had a chance to kill more than 1 or 2 persons if you fired in this horizontal shot point-blank range. So you see again now the problem that we saw in the other mods. The some units got in front of each other, ahead of each other, and then they try to skirmish forward, but they're still mixed up. So they don't have a very good sort of field of fire. And some units are attempted, some soldiers are attempted to run forward somehow, very interesting, because they couldn't fire or something. So here's one of the enemy cavalry units. As I said, some of the cavalry, especially the bodyguards, are armed with carbines, which are flintlock firearms. They had a shorter range than muskets.
Our men are under attack. We must act now.
These were carried by very wealthy cavalrymen, so by the lifeguards of the various generals and so on. So what do we see here? These units are not skirmishing, actually. They are making a strategic or tactical retreat.
Our men are under attack. We must act now.
And they've left this unit of dragoons behind as a rear guard, and they are covering the retreat of the main army. That's a very interesting move. Unfortunately, the enemy dragoons have been routed, and they will be cut down by our cavalry. And now our army is advancing forward. What happened is that the enemy realized they were being shot and they were losing the battle, so they moved back up towards this hill, and so I had to move my units forward. On the other hand, because they keep being shot at from a distance, they are forced to skirmish forward once again. This happens in all Medieval 2 games and mods. But here, look at this. So we have another bunching up of units. About 4 units are bunched up, and one of them is skirmishing forward to get clear of the other units so they could fire. But these units here at the front, they're bunched up. So 2 units bunched up together, they cannot fire effectively. So we still see this kind of behavior.
Our men are under attack. We need to act.
But it's not as serious because they are more spread out and they're far from the distance, so the chances that we'll all bunch up in one point, like we saw previously with Medieval 2 and Stainless Steel, are far less. So here we've routed the cavalry on one of our wings, on the right wing, our right wing. And having routed the enemy cavalry, we took the opportunity to charge the enemy cannon on this side. In the meantime, the enemy cavalry is making a quick escape. But at least we had a chance to attack the cannon, and now the enemy cavalry is making a comeback. You can see them in the distance. They've rallied themselves. And one thing you'll notice is the royalists are still fighting. They are fighting and they're even firing, which we did not see in the vanilla game. And the vanilla army had completely routed in about 3 minutes. So we see some bunching up here, very unfortunate. Wonderful animations for the shot units. This is one thing that Creative Assembly got right. The animations for the shot units, both for the infantry, the cavalry, for the artillery, they are wonderful. So another cavalry fight on the other side. So there was another cavalry fight like the one we showed before. There we were attacked by some enemy arquebusiers, and we routed them with the help of our infantry.
We're under attack!
You see again this terrible bunching up, 3 units bunched up together.
We need to act.
But at least somebody is shooting. It's not as desperate as in the previous battles. So these are the Royalist arquebusiers. They have been routed. They're being chased by some troopers. Troopers were called all cavalrymen. So a troop of cavalry was a company of cavalry, and the cavalrymen in general were called troopers for want of a better word. If they were arquebusiers, they'd be called arquebusiers. If they were dragoons, dragoons. Otherwise, very often they would just be called troopers. So you see here again this terrible bunching up, these irregular, messed up formations bunched up together.
We're under attack!
And we've gone on the offensive. We've sent our halberdiers forward. The halberdiers are a lighter unit. They were meant for garrison duty. They're armed with these pole arms, sometimes with halberds, and they can fight in pike formation, but they can also be more mobile, and there they just attack. So here is one of those things that I don't like about these battle AI. The enemy cavalry, the AI cavalry, very often charges headlong into pikes. So this is the enemy general. You see him here with red feathers on his helmet.
Has no honor. The battle is very much in our favor. If we remain true and steadfast, victory will be ours.
And this is one of the things that I had a little bit inquired Alpha Delta whether he could do something about it, but he said we've done what we could. There are issues with the AI that's ultimately Creative Assembly's fault. That's about true. But it was also early days then, so there was less know-how on how to fix a battle AI. So the enemy general here has made it through, although we intercepted part of his bodyguard. And so I've made a battle AI that somewhat corrects these issues, so enemy cavalry will not charge headlong. So here we routed an enemy pike unit with double teamed the enemy pike unit that we routed. So as I was saying, I made a mod, a battle AI mod at the time, that was fixing some of the issues with cavalry charging into pikes and with musketeers being so bunched up. It didn't completely fix the issues, but it improved the behavior a little bit. And I think I released it, I'm not quite sure. But I may do a little bit more work because I had some more ideas and re-release it at some point. So here an enemy halberdier unit has attacked our pikemen. And we have double teamed that unit, so we've attacked them with halberdiers on their flanks.
Like this, we will smash the enemy.
You see here the halberdiers are swinging the halberds up in the air, and in reality they would get sort of stuck with other halberds if you were doing this, or might even hit some of your friends. How halberdiers apparently fought, at least this is a theory that I've heard, is that they put the halberds down, they use them as pikes, and if the enemy got very close, sometimes they had these hooks and curves in the halberds, and they would pick the enemy halberds and pull them and try to throw enemy halberdiers on the ground. Once they were on the ground, they would disentangle the halberds and try to stab them with a pointy end of the halberd. You see, halberds always have a pointy end. You see these ones, yeah, these are pole arms. They have a hook and a pointy end. The hook was to grab the enemy either from the clothes or from his halberd, pull him, throw him on the ground, and then stab him with a pointy bit. That was the plan. Otherwise, they fought like pikemen. They weren't swinging the halberds about. So we routed another unit there, and here we have our cavalry operating in the rear, and we are collecting prisoners. As the enemy is routing, we're picking up the units that are routing. I mean, another thing is the rotation by rank. The units were practicing at this time. It was introduced by the Dutch, by Maurice of Nassau. The idea was that units fired in such a way that ranks succeeded one or the other. So there were about 10 ranks, and one fired, and then they went to the rear to reload, and the rest of the unit then could fire, the next rank could fire, then go to the rear, then the next rank could fire. Or they could move forward. The guys from the back who had loaded can go forward and fire, then they will stay there and start loading, and then the other rank that was in the rear would go to the front. So you could advance by rotation of the ranks or retreat by rotation of the ranks. And if you think about it, this makes less sense if units would only fire, you know, when the enemy got to 50 meters away, because then within the next minute or two they'll be upon you. So there's no point of having rotation of the ranks if units only fired 50 meters away, because then, you know, the pikemen will charge you, and within a minute or two or so they'll be upon you, and it took about a minute to load a musket. So it makes no sense to have rotation of the ranks if you're not going to fire at range. And of course, as I said before, the whole point of the musket and the arquebus were that they were accurate at range. They were shorter weaponry that could fire at the shorter distances accurately. The only point was that you could use these to fire at a range accurately. So we're taking prisoners now. That was an easy victory, but a much harder victory than the previous battles, the ones in stainless steel and vanilla. Especially the ones in vanilla were hopeless. At least here the enemy put up a fight. I really think this is mainly because of the longer range. We're talking about a range of about 160 to 170 meters compared to arquebuses that have about 110 in the previous games. So like a 50% increase in firing range, and this increase has already made a difference. Here's a glorious army. This is our general behind the standard bearer. The guy with the red feathers on his helmet.
All of Christendom will be awed by the victory we have won here today.
So that was the end of the battle. We lost 337 men. That's more men together than we lost in the previous 4 battles. So it's already making a difference, this longer range. And I really think the main difference here was the range. A little bit better AI perhaps, but the main thing was the range. Our cavalry took a lot of prisoners, and our musketeers acquitted themselves well. The second count killed just a few people. So that was the battle. Thank you for watching.